Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
Welcome to Eco Money. In recent weeks, the UK government's development finance institution and impact investor, British International Investment, or BII for short, launched a new utility-scale renewable energy platform together with Dutch entrepreneurial development bank FMO and Swiss-based infrastructure investment manager SUSI Partners. Going by the name, Sustainable Asia Renewable Assets, the new platform is aiming to build a 500 megawatt portfolio of greenfield renewable energy projects across Southeast Asia. So how important are such projects in driving capital to meet climate investment needs, and how can an innovative blended finance model help? In other words, is this project potentially a game changer in the climate finance space? For more insights, we're joined by Srini Nagarajan, Managing Director and Head of Asia at British International Investment. Good morning, Srini.
Morning, Emaad. Lovely talking to you.
Yep, lovely to have you on. Let's talk about BII's newly announced projects, the Sustainable Asia Renewable Assets. What makes this project stand out in terms of both scope and impact? Why is BII interested in this region?
First of all, I must say that your shows are admirable. You conducted very well. Thank you so much for that. BII is a UK government-owned BFI, means Development Financial Institution. We come under what is called Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. And we are an important offering of what is called British International, the British International Partners. It's the world's oldest DFI. I mean, we've been here since 75 years. We were a part of Singapore as well, when Singapore was a developing nation. And our job fundamentally is to provide the much needed development capital to emerging markets in Asia and Africa. Our mission is to be much more catalytic in nature and crowd in commercial capital and not crowd them out. And in the process, build sustainable organization, thereby creating jobs, also making sure that gender is kept in mind. I mean, if you try and look at climate change, which is our important mission besides inclusion, as you know, it has a serious impact on the lives of people in our day-to-day lives. This has to be addressed through both mitigation and adaptation. So in our efforts towards driving mitigation, we have started a platform with wonderful partners like SUSI Partners from Switzerland and FMO, which is a new utility-scale renewable energy platform. And as you said, it's called SARA, Sustainable Asia Renewable Assets, to build 500 megawatts of greenfield assets across Southeast Asia. The goal of this platform is to take early-stage risks where commercial investors might hesitate, build a pipeline of bankable opportunities, and eventually mobilize third-party capital into these markets. I think it's also an opportunity for us to demonstrate that investors like us are able to take early-stage risks and eventually build a commercially sustainable project that can attract commercial capital and give them attractive risk-adjusted return, whilst delivering the climate goals as well. So I think this whole the reason why we started is more like a demonstration effect to demonstrate feasibility and encourage market participation in the whole renewable energy sector.
Okay, if we can take a step back here. Now, we understand that Southeast Asia is often overlooked by private capital. What are some of the reasons why that is so?
First of all, I think Southeast Asia is one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases in the world. And these countries are also very vulnerable to climate change. And as you know, climate change and all these things are linked to food security as well, really. So the risk perceptions associated with investing in these economies remain a constraint for commercial investors. At the moment, Southeast Asia lacks bankable opportunities in the energy space. The regulatory framework as well is still pretty evolving, and must say it remains volatile, really. So what happens at this when all this happens is there's a lack of adequate private capital confidence in kind of enticing them to come and invest in these sectors and take those early stage risks. Hence, we see that many sustainable infrastructure projects in the region are not able to attract commercial financing, as these projects face enormous execution challenges in the whole construction stage. I think that's where development capital comes in very handy. And when the project cash flows are established, it can then attract highly commercial investors. So that's our job as a DFI.
If we can use some specific examples here, the likes of emerging markets like Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines, when it comes to cobbling together or catalyzing private sector investments into renewable energy in these markets, what would you say are some of the biggest risks or challenges?
I think, first of all, I must say that, look, as a development financial institution, as I said earlier, our job is to be much more catalytic in nature. And Southeast Asia is an important market for BII, where we are planning to invest up to around 500 million pounds in the whole area of climate finance between 2022 and 2026. We have already committed around $200 million as a part of that, and we are planning to invest the balance this year and next year. And this includes renewable energy, EV ecosystem, waste management, water infrastructure, anything which helps to address the emissions and build climate resilient economies. Yeah. So these priority markets include Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, which are the most emitting nations. Given the nascent stage of these markets in this whole evolution of renewable energy, there are bound to be challenges in terms of the policy framework. That's what I said earlier. I think the policy framework, we need standardization of policy framework and predictability that this is not going to change. That's number one. Execution challenges are very, very important in infrastructure. I mean, right from land acquisition till the transmission network, everything is very important, and it involves a lot of government interface. So fundamentally, to make sure that there is ease of execution, that is very critical. And the third important thing, Imam, is that at the end of the day, the track record of having delivered investors to international investors is very critical. If you look at that, many of the other Asian nations which have attracted commercial capital, it's the consistency of having delivered return to international investors. But look, having said all this, this is a journey. These are emerging markets. This is a journey. They will get there eventually, but the journey will be wobbly.
Yeah, it's a journey for investors as well. And you spoke very briefly earlier about risk-adjusted returns. Now, what kind of returns should investors be expecting from these kinds of projects, and what sort of timeline are we looking at?
First of all, infrastructure investments have got three features. First of all, they are A, capital intensive. B, they take a longer time to mature than the standard private equity style investing. And thirdly, they have a lot of interface with the government and the regulators. So as a result of all this, we need patient capital in this segment, and investors have to be a bit more resilient. Right? That's important. The returns in this particular segment depends on the instruments you try and support. If you take a project finance, they got a certain capped return, right? Because they are senior loans. If you look at mezzanine type structures, which are in between debt and equity, they have a certain higher return than senior project returns. And equity, of course, you take open-ended risks as an equity investor, they should have a higher return. Returns are related to risks, and they honestly have to be seen on a case-by-case basis, also taking into account the devaluation risk which you take in these countries and amount of hedging you're able to take as well, really. But I think at the end of the day, if you are patient, if you're willing to build sustainable organizations which are well-governed, you can make your desired returns in these markets, and Western investors would be attracted to it. And also, let me tell you that a lot of capital market instruments available today, like investment trusts and others, which can give you annuity stream of incomes over a period of time, where many of the international investors can come and take those risks once the project has started establishing cash flows.
Okay, which brings me to my next question about blended finance. How would you describe a blended finance model that could work in the context of climate finance in Southeast Asia? Perhaps you could give us aspects that it should cover.
Southeast Asia requires around $200 billion annually in infrastructure investments until 2030 to maintain its economic growth momentum, while ensuring we are able to maintain climate resilience. Blended finance, what does it do? It can help close the financing gap for climate change and other social sectors. It helps you attract private investment by spreading the risks across the sources of funding. Because in blending, you've got a concessional tranche, you've got the mezzanine tranche, and you've got the senior tranche, really. So as a patient investor, BII's role in blended finance, for example, for us, is to provide the long-term flexible financing solution that gives projects and businesses time to scale and prove its impact. So blended finance can be a very powerful lever to unlock the capital needed for the whole sustainable development that remains underutilized globally. I think if you look at between 2015 and 2020, average annual inflows of blended finance globally only stood at around $10 billion. This is actually a fraction of $4.2 trillion actually you need in developing economies to meet sustainable development goals. So as bankability continues to remain a significant challenge in Asia, and based on estimates, I would say 35% of the infrastructure projects are marginally bankable. Assuming these projects remain unfinanced, this represents a large shortfall in climate finance across Asia to reach the net zero by 2050. So blending becomes very important so that it gives comfort to the commercial investors that there is a certain amount of cushion. Besides the project risk, there are investors who are willing to take the commercial risks as well. And it allows the international investors to come and invest. That's why I think blending is very important to kickstart all the whole infrastructure investments in all these economies.
Yeah, and there was plenty of evidence during the recently concluded COP29 in Azerbaijan that BII is taking a very positive approach when it comes to blended finance. You announced your role in the Green Investments Partnership, which is an innovative blended finance program to mobilize up to $5 billion to finance energy transition in Southeast Asia. Can you share more details on the progress as well as upcoming projects that the region can expect?
Sure. Thank you. Firstly, I think I must say UK and Singapore have a very, very close working relationship. The GIP, as what you call, is fundamentally falls within the remit of Singapore government and MAS, and their commitment to provide up to $500 million in concession funding to support the Financing Asia Transition Partnerships. It's called FAST-P. This combined pool of concession capital will be used to crowd in commercial capital and other sources of finance. So, and I think as a whole part of this particular journey, we from the UK government, as a part of FCDO, we are also very keen to participate in that journey. I cannot discuss the details of the partnership because they're still in the making, if you would appreciate, which is already in the public domain. We are committed to supporting Southeast Asia's energy. We look forward to really for opportunities where we can be additional and bring in more value. Suffice to say, I think the government of UK recently announced £100 million mobilization facilities to be established by BII that can make easier for private investors to invest in emerging markets. We have actually called for proposals, which is now open and closes on 4th of March. We're doing this initiative in partnership with Mercer, a global investing firm. So we're calling on asset management community to submit proposals to partner with us to develop innovative solutions to increase the much needed private investment into emerging markets, including Southeast Asia.
All right. We have been speaking with Srini Nagarajan, Managing Director and Head of Asia at British International Investment, about BII's new utility-scale renewable energy platform. It's called the Sustainable Asia Renewable Assets. It's aiming to build a 500-megawatt portfolio of greenfield renewable energy projects across Southeast Asia and could be instrumental in driving capital to meet some pressing climate investment needs. Srini, thanks for your time this morning.
Pleasure, Ivan. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.